Hi, everyone. Once again, it's time for the SMC Journal podcast, the show that is all about making software better through software engineering and IT today. That includes performance, reliability, security, observability, AI, and much, much more. I'm Scott Moore, your host. Appreciate you being with me on the show today. You will notice that our wonderful Agent 503 has had his beach upgrade. He is ready for summer. He is ready to hit those waves, and he's got his Jamaican dreads going on as well. So he probably is interested in using JMeter. Remember JMon and the JMeter's free video from the performance tour? Hopefully you do. Today's topic is all about adding generative AI and other AI features of ChatGPT-4 to observability. Where is that going to take observability? Will it be able to help us ask questions and answer questions we never even dreamed of asking? Will it bring observability to the next phase? My guest today believes that's the case, and we're going to talk about that today. Before we do, let's talk about the sponsor that makes this show possible for you to watch. This podcast is sponsored by Saltworks Security. For almost 10 years, Saltworks has delivered world-class application security services and products designed to help enterprises secure their applications from policy to production in an ever-changing security landscape. They're the makers of SaltMiner, an application security management platform designed by security professionals for security professionals. SaltMiner aggregates and normalizes the issues found by many different solutions and enriches that data with business context. SaltMiner gives team members from the C-suite, security, and development teams the ability to manage their application security program through customizable views. The Saltworks SaltMiner Community Edition is a free penetration testing management and delivery application. It provides teams with custom reporting for potentially thousands of end users, red team support, and the ability to manage new and retesting of engagements. SaltMiner Community Edition also allows teams to enforce both testing methodologies and custom vulnerability databases for consistency in engagement delivery. Check them out today at saltworks.io. Thanks once again to our wonderful sponsors. You know, we've talked a lot about observability on this show in the past. In recent weeks, I've actually went through a series of press releases where some of the largest observability platforms have introduced new feature sets, new press releases saying, hey, we're talking about generative AI and we are integrating that into our product. Many of those solutions have to do with querying observability platforms to ask them questions in a human-like way instead of putting some kind of weird query together or some query language that you have to learn, just saying, hey, tell me what's wrong with my system. And I want to know what's wrong here, or I want to know what's wrong there. And it's supposed to be able to give you output that presents data points and graphs, dashboards that match what you're looking for to help you solve those problems. But is there a step beyond that? Well, I found out about this tool called FusionReactor, and they have been around since 2005. They're not a new platform around APM, but they actually have released a new feature that I think is maybe even a little more advanced than some of the larger observability platforms out there. It's called Ops Pilot AI, and I just want to show you what that looks like. FusionReactor was an APM product, now observability product as well. They've included a lot of the CNCF products into their logs, metrics, tracing, open telemetry, etc. But it talks about Ops Pilot being your ultimate application monitoring solution with cutting-edge GPT-4 integration. You can now transform the way you monitor and manage your applications and understand complex issues and anomalies and identify root cause of the problem quickly. And when I saw that kind of made me want to talk more to this company, because that's really the whole point. Back in the day when we were talking only about APM solutions, just monitoring solutions, static applications and static infrastructure, we were always promised this thing called the single pane of glass. And what that really brought us was a single pane in some place that rhymes with glass that turned out to be the APM solution itself, because it was so complicated we couldn't figure out how to get that single pane of glass. We're going to talk about that during this interview. But as we have moved into this next phase, which is observability, and now observability with AI capabilities, brings on a whole new conversation about what you can find out and fix. And the point being, root cause analysis, because I truly believe that the power of observability is to get to root cause as quickly as possible, hopefully before your customers do. And the vendors that can visualize that and make it quickly, make it a quicker thing, make it the fastest way to solve that problem, they're the ones that are going to lead the market and win the market share at the end of the day. So to talk about this, I'm bringing on David Tattersall, the CEO of Intergral Information Systems, and he is going to talk about their product FusionReactor, but more importantly about what it means to bring AI into observability and where we go from here. Let's talk to David. Hi, David. Welcome to the SMC Journal podcast. It's good to have you on the show today.
Hey, Scott. Nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and your background and how you ended up in the field of APM and observability?
Okay, yeah, sure. So my name is David Tattersall. I've been in the monitoring observability business for the last 23 years now. Prior to that, I was also a company owner, and we started our business building very, very, very large turnkey web-based applications. And through some of the complexities in that, we moved into the monitoring observability space in order to get, sort of from a developer perspective, very deep insights into what was going on in the systems. And these were Java-based systems. So I've got a technical background, and I'd say we're a very technical company, but we wanted to sort of build observability and pioneer observability systems for developers, because at the end of the day, it's the developers that need to solve the problems usually, and those are the folks that need the answers.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being on the show. I know you've got a product called FusionReactor, and I've been talking a lot about observability lately. Of course, I'm a performance engineer, so I was talking just a few episodes ago about some of the largest observability platforms out there announcing the integration with generative AI and ChatGPT, and I know that you've added that as well. So you're actually the first observability platform with that feature that I've had a chance to interview. So I have some very pointed questions today, and it's really around how we've gone from the world of APM, when we were promised that single pane of glass by APM, into the world of observability. And as things have changed, now we're almost entering a new phase with the integration of AI and its capabilities to bring additional features and capabilities. You've been around for a while. I mean, you've been around since 2005 doing this. Can you talk about that shift and how it's changed, how you've had to pivot your product and what you see is going on here?
Sure. I mean, if you go back sort of 15, 20 years, observability was really about capturing data. And, we've seen some shifts that have happened there. We've gone from the pet server space to the containerized space to the microservice space. There's definitely been a change in monitoring. And, if you go back a couple of years and take a look at, what some of the analysts were saying, it was, there's a shift to, it was this observability phrase, and people are talking about the three pillars, the metrics, logs, and traces, and then this shift to AI ops. And I think where we sort of find ourselves now is it's in a whole new universe of where we can go with monitoring and with AI. And really, with the advent of introducing artificial intelligence and the advent of machine learning, we're going to really see sort of a quantum shift in AI's ability to, provide AI-driven insights and really, to collect data across diverse ecosystems, and basically this is going to empower developers to basically proactively identify and proactively resolve issues that was before never dreamt possible. You mentioned the single pane of glass, and I think if you go back sort of 10 years and looked into the marketing messages from probably every single monitoring APM vendor, they would all say somewhere, "Oh, we've got the single pane of glass." But when you think about it, really, you don't need the single pane of glass. If you're looking at something, whether that be some anomaly, or you're looking at some performance-related issue, or you're looking at the impact to the business, then you're looking at that from a specific context. And that context really is the pane of glass that you're interested in. It's not there's no one single window. That would be impossible to get access to all this information. It's all about context. And I think really if you take the advent of AI and the whole way that we will be interacting with this technology moving forward, I think it's going to dramatically change. We're already at the point with where we are of being able to simply ask the application, how are we doing? Are we experiencing any anomalies? And based on the response to that, you're saying things like, okay, well, can you explain that? If we were looking at something, if we were a devs team and there was some issue going off, we'd be sitting around a table asking ourselves the same questions. We'd be pulling in data from various different systems, trying to assimilate, aggregate that data, between us, and ask questions to come to some solution. At the end of the day, we're trying to come to a solution. It's not observability is not just about seeing. That's something that you need. It's like saying, okay, my application requires a CPU for it to work. In order to understand a problem, we need data. Data is critical in all this picture. And the observability part gives us data. Now, where we've gone, when I think back of our evolution, we started as an on-premise application performance monitor. Our differentiator was the depth that we went inside the JVM. We were very, very, very deep. The reason for that is because usually the problems were deep. The problems generally were either in the code, they were in the memory, they were in the SQL. So, we had to go as deep as we needed to go to pinpoint these problems. But where we are now, we've sort of, this observability really is turning into a commodity. The days of, the large monitoring companies harnessing all this data through proprietary agents is gone. We live in an age of, the CNCF, the Cloud Native Foundation. We live in an age of open telemetry. We live in an age of Prometheus and Loki and Tempo, these systems which are basically they're opening up the floodgates to get the data. But what you need to do is take that data and act upon it. And really, what we've been missing is is that this introduction of AI and the introduction of large language models and the introduction of technologies like LangChain, which are essentially it's like like you've got Kubernetes to orchestrate Docker. You'll be using LangChain to orchestrate the integration with large language models, with APIs, with prompts. So the power of this and being able to capture that data, create the correct prompts, as we all know, everybody's used ChatGPT now. The power of that is the power that you can put into the prompt. The more accurate that is, the better the results. But imagine, taking data and the correct data and putting that into the prompt and then putting that into one or multiple large language models. The power that you're going to get out of that is phenomenal. It's just looking at it. As we've released this and we've been looking at what it can do, it is absolutely transformational.
I believe that, but there's a question in my mind about creating new problems that didn't exist before, and let me clarify that. When we had APM, and the whole reason we want an APM system or any kind of monitoring system as a system engineer, software engineer, I just want to know what's wrong. I want to get to the root cause of a problem that's happening as quickly as possible, fix it so everything is frictionless in my company. So we had problems with APM, maybe not getting enough depth. There wasn't enough correlation of data where we could find very quickly, this is the machine, this is the thing. But now that we're gathering so much more data, we've created another problem, which is storage for that, the expense of that. So there's a whole FinOps thing going on right now. We've seen in public a very large company and a very large observability platform with a $65 million bill for just using the monitoring product. And it's like, if the monitoring of the systems cost more than the systems or as much as the systems themselves, that's a new problem that we've had. What do you see are some of the problems that we're having that we need to solve now versus then?
Okay, that's a really good point. I think, we're a relatively small company, and our positioning with all this is when we started our cloud journey, so the cloud, our observability platform, what we said we want observability for the masses, because right now the cost of capturing all this data and maintaining all this data is so prohibitive. Just like you say, the amount of money that companies are spending on monitoring it's phenomenal. But again, if you think of the advent of AI and what AI will do to this, for sure, there's some data where you might look at it and say, okay, we want trend analysis over some period of time. But many, many times when you're experiencing some sort of problem, you're not interested in what happened 6 months ago. I mean, if you go and get we've done this all the time. We'd keep a couple of weeks worth of logs because within a couple of weeks, we'll know that if we didn't realize it by then we'll probably never realize it. And I think the change in the future will be much more reactive and real time. So the data that, I'm assuming, and this thing is, the situation is evolving rapidly. But where I see the difference, the difference of what we need right now is what we call basically it's dynamic instrumentation. Now, you might be thinking, okay, what's this thing, this dynamic instrumentation? When AI is dealing with a problem, the missing key here is having access to instant data. Now, by that, I'll give you an example. Let's say something's happening, and that thing that's happening is, I don't know, something's failing somewhere. You've got it's some null pointer exceptions being triggered because some things, I don't know, some variables are suddenly not initialized under some certain scenario. Imagine what would happen today with monitoring. So that error may be picked up, it may be flagged, and your good old APM solution would say, hey, you've had an error, and this error occurred this morning at 2 a.m. The developer picks it up and he says, oh, okay, so I'm going to try and reproduce this. So he goes back into his code, he modifies it, he puts it into his CI/CD chain, it eventually gets deployed. And then, he makes some changes, he adds some log lines or something, then he waits. He waits for that error to manifest itself again, to occur again. But imagine from an AI perspective, that error was captured at the point that it occurred, and the context of that was captured at the point that it occurred. And this is dynamic instrumentation. This technology, and this is what we've built, will fundamentally change everything to do with AI, because it's enabling at real time to capture the data in context of where the problem, where the anomaly is occurring. So I think, coming all the way back, with costs and everything, I think the future of monitoring will be, the focus will be much more on either real time or close to real time data. And that will define the cost, and the let's say the bulk of the cost will probably go into the AI, into the engines, into the algorithms, which are able to capture that information and to consume it. That's where the cost will be in the future. I see, my sort of vision. And this is evolving at the moment, literally on a day-to-day basis. I think, in the future, we will interact with these systems in a natural language way. We will ask these systems, or they will tell us what, we had a problem last night. That was a problem. It was on these servers. This was the issue. And this was the cause of that problem. Imagine that. Imagine, the difference between somebody telling, oh, we had a problem, and this was actually the cause of it. And here's the evidence of the cause, because here I captured, the context of that issue as it was happening. Here it is. And, versus today, where we're trying to pull all this data together from everywhere. And it's the data that drives up the costs. Because, we know ourselves, we're having to maintain all this data, store it, manage it, index it. It's expensive. But will that be ultimately necessary in the future? I'm not sure.
I'm hoping that AI can actually use less data to figure out more information than we would, having to have all the information. Or maybe when problems occur, it's like opening up the spigot for more data capture for that period of time until the problem is resolved. And then when everything's healthy, you can go back to general metrics. I don't know if that's the case, but maybe that's what we're going to see. We've seen several press releases this year from New Relic and others saying we've got GPT-4, or we've got some type of generative AI component now built in. And most of them have to do with some kind of a chat or a prompt where you can, instead of putting in some complex query, you're putting an English sentence in, I want to know this, and it gives you back data points, dashboards that you can build that way. I know you have this also built in your product. It's called Ops Pilot AI. And I'd like for you to talk a little bit about that, and how is that the same thing, or it looks like it's more to me than that, because again, going back to what I want as a software engineer is the solution. I want to know the root cause and fixing it as fast as possible. I wish I could even trust the system to not only tell me there's a problem, but hey, this was the reason and I fixed it for you. So you can sleep well. I know we're not at that point yet, but tell me a little bit about how you've put GPT-4 into your product and what it does.
Okay, so we've taken a multi sort of pronged attack at this. On the one side, as we were on the OpenAI beta for about 2 years, so we knew that this was coming. And when ChatGPT was released, we basically looked at that, and we'd already thought about potential integration points within the application. So our let's say first pass at this was to say, okay, I know because I'm observing an application, I know where the errors are. I know that I've got a log file here. I know that's got an error in it. I know that I've had an error in my application. I know I've got a stack trace. I know I've got a slow performing transaction, and I know that that's related to a query. We were already at that level. So taking that information and passing that into the large language model, basically what we've done is we've augmented that. So people always talk about the prompts which are being passed in. And just like I mentioned earlier, the quality of the answer that you get out of ChatGPT is directly relational to the prompt that you give it. The more accurate the prompt, or the more precise you articulate that problem, the better response you're going to get. And that's the same here. So we're augmenting those prompts with additional information, which we believe will improve the quality of the responses. That's let's say phase one. So phase two is you need to look at the big picture. Now, the big picture comes from looking at not just one element of your system, but multiple elements. So you may be looking at various different metrics. You may be looking at the network. You may be looking at the database. And you're essentially trying to build a picture through machine learning where you've got a potential anomaly. So again, when we started looking at this and we investigated different approaches, we found that there are many machine learning algorithms out there, but using one machine learning algorithm it's like if you ask, if there's one brain in the room and you ask that brain has got a train of thought, will give you a specific type of answer. With machine learning, it's all about building up consensus. So we've got in the background, we're taking all these different aspects of the environment, and we are analyzing that and using different machine learning algorithms to basically build up let's say, a consensus, obviously, based on probability, but a consensus of where do we believe the anomaly sits. Now, once we've got that information, we're taking the context of that and passing that into the large language model. So you imagine the context that go back to what we were talking about before, the context of the error or the question that you're asking, that is kingpin to this. That's exactly what we're doing here. We're collecting all that information and we're passing that information in to provide the perfect context for the large language model. Let's take it a step further. So what we've also done now is we've introduced LangChain. And using LangChain, like I mentioned, this is sort of orchestration, similar to how you use Kubernetes to orchestrate your Docker containers. You will use LangChain to orchestrate the large language models, the prompts, the APIs, other data sources, so that you can essentially take a response and you can then build on that response. So you may take one response to one question, pass that into another model to get an even deeper response. So it's sort of like if you imagine, but let's say we're sitting around we're sitting in the war room, we're investigating an issue. I might say something, provide one, I think it's this. You'll pick that up, Scott, and say, yeah, I think that's right. But, should we consider this angle? Somebody else picks it up and says, yeah, that's really interesting. But that particular thing, that only happens when this occurs. And then you build up, this what we call this tree of thought. And using LangChain and using these technologies like that together with AI, we're building up, and we've done this already, we've built up this train of thought to provide phenomenal answers. It's when you, we just earlier, we were conversing with our application, and it's mind blowing to be able to do it. I mean, probably in a year somebody will look at this. We do that. Everybody's doing that. That's old hat. But at the moment, being able to do that it's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me as well. So, and that leads me to my next question, which is, where do you see this in 3 to 5 years down the road? I mean, I can't even come up with something.
I don't know whether you ever saw the movie Stanley Kubrick. It was 2001: A Space Odyssey, and it was Dave the astronaut talking to Hal, and sort of I think the observability applications of the future will be very similar. The observability solution will be managing your application. That's actually why we called it Ops Pilot, because just like the co-pilot in a plane, the pilot doesn't fly the plane. He's reading a book or he's having a nap. The co-pilot flies the plane, and we see Ops Pilot flying your application. It's flying it, it's watching it, it's alerting you, it's understanding what's happening, and this will be the future. Where's it going to end up? Difficult to know, really. It's it really is difficult. Do I envisage it changing the way we interact with these systems? Absolutely. It's already doing that. Do I envisage that it will proactively deliver answers to us that we never dreamed of? Yes, it will do that. Do I envisage it taking control and sort of flying the plane? Yes. I can pretty much say with 100% certainty it will do that. It's sort of like, we were thinking earlier, we were thinking about this. It's like a self-driving car. I mean, 100 years ago or a few more years ago, people couldn't dream of cars. They wanted, when quizzed about this, they wanted faster horses. Cars came along. In the meantime, we've got self-driving cars. We've got Teslas, and there will be many other self-driving cars. What's the barrier to entry? Sort of people's, I've talked to a lot of people, would you trust a self-driving car? Oh, no, the old school crowd, probably like, me. I'm not so sure, but actually, I would trust it. I think that the software will actually make probably a much better job. It will react a lot faster. Sure, accidents happen, but if you compare that to the number of accidents that people cause, it's, there's a huge difference. And I think, I was just on an event last week and talking to people, and many people said, that they've got to trust it first. They looked at it, they were amazed by it. There was this jaw-dropping wow moment, but at the end they said, "Oh yeah, but is it giving me the right answer?" Pretty much, yeah. It's actually giving you the right answer, and it's probably giving you a much definitely a more rapid answer because it's got access to more data. And that's another aspect of this. It's the relevance of that data. That's why this dynamic instrumentation is critical to this, because you imagine, something's breaking, it knows where it's breaking, because we're already able to do that. It knows where it's breaking in the code. But imagine when it's inside the code, it's saying, which variables would impact this? Which variables would affect this? Oh, I'll just dynamically instrument them for you. Mm-hmm. Imagine you've got to sort of let that sink in to say, what can you do? We're instrumenting this in real time, analyzing it as the issue occurs to figure out what the problem is. Wow, never seen that before. That must be a new feature. Yeah, well, that's part of what we've built. So
two key words I keep hearing is relevance and context. And those are two key things for this. I'm still kind of I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, and And data. I mean, obviously, data is critical, but it's that it's think about how we approach observability problems. We're still trying to join the dots. We still we think ourselves, which dashboard should we build that can answer this type of question? I don't want to do that. I want the AI software to do that because it
That's right.
knows it a lot better than I do. And
Right.
it knows the data, it knows where to look. Why should I try and, develop a dashboard which just shows me this type of information? That bringing it all back to this single pane of glass. If you look at some of these systems, they've got umpteen or sometimes hundreds of dashboards. Do I need all that? No, it's just distraction. I want. It's heavy lifting looking at this data. I know because I talk to people who do this all the time. I know myself through looking at this data, trying to analyze it. It's heavy lifting, even with the observability tools. A lot of people, they struggle to understand it. They struggle to understand what they're seeing. And I've spoken to enough developers who've got the let's say the key APM solutions in place, and I say, oh, are you happy with those solutions? Do you use them? No, we don't use them. What do you do? Oh, we use the logs. We put stuff in the logs, and then we try and figure it out from the logs. That's easier. Come on, that's not the point. If we're building observability solutions, we need the solutions to find the problems. That's why we're
Exactly.
doing it.
Exactly.
So, I think and this is really, this comes back to when we sat down in 2005 and we said, we're going to build this solution. I remember sitting around a table with my business partner, and he said, we need the big green button. I said, the big green button? I said, yeah, we need the big green button. And this big green button is the thing that you'll push it and it will solve the problem. We've been waiting 18 years for that. It's here now. We've got that big green button and we're pushing it. And it will give you the answer. There's no question about it. And like I said, the future, it will fix it. No question
Amazing.
about it. Yeah.
So if somebody wants to know more about Fusion Reactor and OpsPilot AI, where can they go to find out more information?
So if they go onto our website at fusion-reactor.com, there's a link straight off the homepage, which shows some information about OpsPilot. I would say the best thing to do is to sign up for a demo or sign up for an account. We've got a free account. That account, one thing that is worth mentioning is obviously there's a charge for this. So OpsPilot costs something. We've got something called OpsPilot tokens, and you get, even if you do a trial, you get so many tokens so that you can try it out. But we're going to be, in the next coming weeks and coming months, we're going to be releasing more and more and more capability in and around this. Now it's out, we've opened the floodgates. There'll be no stopping this.
Very exciting times. Thanks, David, again for being on the show today, and you're welcome back anytime. Once you have some of those new features, maybe we can revisit this.
That'd be great. Thanks for having me, Scott, and all the best to you.
All right.
Yeah.
David mentioned trusting a car to drive for you. I'm still ticked off that I don't have that flying DeLorean promise from Back to the Future that was supposed to arrive in 2015. Like, where is that at? Till we get that, I don't know. Maybe I'm not going to trust driverless cars until then. But you probably heard what I said about relevance, context, and David mentioned data. I think that's really the key here. So where we go from here with AI, I don't think anybody can really predict 3 to 5 years in advance. I think we can kind of see about a 6 month to a 1 year window right now, because as David talked about, we are right on the very beginning of this. David even talked to me a little bit off camera about we're probably the first minute of the first day of this new era of observability, and there's just no telling where it's going to go because it's going so fast right now. Very few can even keep up. But I will say, it goes back to some of these reports we're seeing. The ones that do get it, the ones who do apply observability properly in their company with business context, are winning the game, and they're fixing problems 80 to 90% faster. So there's definitely something to this, and this is the reason why companies are spending vast amounts of money on these platforms. But you know what? I could be wrong. What do you think? I'd love to hear your feedback. You can contact me several different ways through social media. Probably one of my biggest platforms is LinkedIn, but I'm also on some of the other ones. You can either scan the QR code or click on that link for my bio, and it'll take you to all the places where you can reach me at. I'm also available through the good old email address, heyscott@smcjournal.com. Would love to hear what you think about the show. What about this content on YouTube? Do you like it? If you do, it would be great if you gave me a thumbs up, you like this video, and more importantly, subscribe to the channel, because that helps me understand if I'm presenting you with the right kind of content that you're going to want to see over and over and over again. So until next time, I'll see you at the next SMC Journal podcast. This is Scott Moore saying thanks again for watching, and bye-bye.